Your grandfather bought his farm for $200 an acre, paid it off in 12 years, with what the land grew. Your neighbor just sold his farm for $12,000 an acre to a corporation headquartered in another state. That will never put a boot on that ground. Same acre, same soil, same county, 60 times the price. And a different kind of owner than this county has ever seen before. In 1960, the average acre of Iowa farmland sold for $216. A farmer with 160 acres could buy his neighbor's 160 for $34,000. A serious sum, but a sum that farming could produce. He could borrow it from the local bank that knew his name, pay it back over 15 years from the crops that ground grew. And when it was paid, he owned it, completely. No corporation, no investor, no distant entity with a claim on his ground. If old iron runs in your blood, subscribe to Classic Farm Iron. Fellow farmers are watching right now. Today, the average acre of Iowa farmland sells for $12,000. That same 160 acres costs $1,900,000, nearly $2 million. For the same ground your grandfather's neighbor sold for $34,000. A beginning farmer cannot buy that ground from what that ground produces. Not at current commodity prices, not at current interest rates, not in any realistic financing scenario that ends with the land paid off before the farmer is too old to work it. The math simply doesn't close. And the people who know the math doesn't close are buying the land anyway, because they're not farming it for what it produces. They're holding it for what it appreciates. Your grandfather understood land as a productive asset, something that fed a family, employed a community, passed from generation to generation with the knowledge of how to work it. Land today is increasingly understood as a financial asset, something that appreciates in a portfolio, a hedge against inflation, a store of value for investors who have never watched a crop emerge from the ground they own. Where these two understandings are in direct competition, and for 60 years, the financial understanding has been winning. Three forces drove the price from $200 to $12,000. Consolidation, investment, financing. Each one made land more expensive. Each one made farming it less accessible to the farmer who wanted to work it rather than hold it. Consolidation first. Your grandfather's county in 1960 had farms averaging 160 acres. The census counted 5.9 million farms in the United States. Each farm was a buyer in the local land market. When a neighbor sold, 4 or 5 other farmers in the township could realistically compete to buy it. The price was set by what local farmers could afford to pay from local farming income. That natural ceiling kept land priced within reach of the farmer who would work it. The consolidation began in the 1970s. Larger farms could spread equipment costs across more acres. The economics of scale were real. A farmer with 300 acres could justify the new combine that a farmer with 160 could not. When the neighbor sold, the larger farmer could outbid the smaller one. Each acquisition made the acquiring farmer larger. Each acquisition removed a competitor from the next sale. 5.9 million farms in 1960, 2 million farms today. The 3.9 million farms that disappeared didn't take their land with them. The land stayed, the farmers left. And the land that 3.9 million farms once occupied moved into fewer and fewer hands. Each transfer raising the price because each buyer was larger, better financed, and more willing to pay for productive acres than the farmer before him. Investment second. Your grandfather's competition when buying land was other farmers, men he knew by name, men whose finances were similar to his, men who were also constrained by what farming could actually produce. Starting in the 1990s, a new buyer entered the market. Institutional investors, pension funds, real estate investment trusts, university endowments, insurance companies, sovereign wealth funds from foreign governments, all of them discovering the same thing simultaneously. Farmland appreciates reliably. One farmland produces income while it appreciates. Farmland is a hedge against the inflation that erodes other investments. These buyers are not constrained by what farming produces. A pension fund managing $200 billion can allocate 1% to farmland and spend $2 billion buying ground that local farmers cannot compete with. The pension fund doesn't need the land to cash flow at current prices. It needs the land to appreciate over 30 years. And at $200 an acre, that's a different calculation than at $12,000. Your grandfather competed against his neighbors. Oh, you compete against pension funds, university endowments, sovereign wealth funds. The playing field is not the same field. By 2023, institutional investors owned an estimated 40 million acres of American farmland. 40 million acres, an area larger than Iowa. None of it farmed by the entity that owns it. All of it leased back to the farmers who used to own ground like it. Farmers now paying rent to a pension fund in Boston for the privilege of working land their grandfather paid $200 an acre for. Financing third. Boy, your grandfather financed his land purchase at the local bank. The banker knew him, knew his farm, knew his father's farm. The loan was sized to what that ground could realistically produce. The bank had to live in the same community as the farmer if the loan went wrong. That shared geography kept lending conservative, kept land prices anchored to production value. Today's farmland financing comes from global capital markets. Low interest rates between 2009 and 2022 sent institutional money looking for yield. Farmland offered reliable 3 to 4% returns plus appreciation. Well, better than bonds, more stable than stocks. The capital poured in, each new dollar competing for the same finite acres. Each new buyer willing to pay more than the last because their return requirement was different from a farmer's. The local banker who knew your grandfather's name has been replaced by a financing system that never sees the ground it values. What this means for the next generation is the conversation nobody wants to have directly. Your grandfather could farm and save and eventually buy. The path existed, it was hard, it required sacrifice, but it was real. No, a young farmer willing to work could eventually own. Today, a beginning farmer working rented ground at current land prices and current commodity prices cannot accumulate enough from farming income to buy the ground he is farming. Not in a career, not in a lifetime, not unless land prices collapse or commodity prices double or interest rates fall to levels not seen in a generation. The path your grandfather walked to ownership has closed. Not for every farmer, not in every county, but for the beginning farmer without inherited land, without family capital, or without a relative willing to sell below market, the path is closed. The inheritance question was at the center of this. Farming is increasingly an inherited occupation. Not because farming families are exclusive, but because the only realistic way to farm owned ground today is to inherit it. Your grandfather's farm at $200 an acre could be divided fairly among 3 sons, each inheriting roughly $50,000 in land, each receiving enough to begin. That same farm today at $12,000 an acre is worth nearly $2 million. Dividing it fairly among 3 sons means each receives $650,000 in assets, or the farm is sold and divided as cash. The farm that supported one family for 100 years cannot be divided without being destroyed. And the son who inherits it whole owes his brothers what equity demands. The farm survives, the family often doesn't. Some farmers found ways to hold on, not many. The pressure is real and it compounds every year. But some meant conservation easements that reduce land value in exchange for permanent agricultural use protections, selling to land trusts that prioritize farmer ownership over investment returns, multi-family arrangements that keep farms intact across generations without forcing division. And some farmers simply refused the $12,000 offer, held the ground at lower returns than the market offered, prioritized keeping the land in farming hands over maximizing the estate value. Your grandfather didn't buy land as an investment, he bought it as a farm. In that distinction, land as farm versus land as investment is the difference between $200 an acre and $12,000, between a county where beginning farmers could still start and a county where the land is owned by Boston and worked by tenants. Your grandfather stood on ground he owned. Every acre under his feet was his, paid for by his work, held for his children, part of a community of farmers who owned what they worked. The farmer who works that same ground today may work it his whole life without owning an acre of it. He's paying rent to a pension fund that he's never seen the field. Farming ground that will never be his. $200, $12,000. Same acre, same soil, same county, different country. What did your grandfather pay for his land? Do you know the number? Did he tell you? Is that land still in your family, or did it sell to a neighbor, to a corporation, to someone who will never put a boot on it? What is that land worth today? Have you done the math on what it would cost to buy it back? What that number feels like? Tell us below, because the farmers who remember $200 land understand something about $12,000 land that the price tag alone doesn't fully explain. Share this with a farmer who is working ground he will never own because the ground his grandfather could have bought for $34,000 now costs nearly $2 million.